welcome back to Extraordinary Strides. Today, I'm your fairy run mother, Coach Christine, and I'm thrilled to have you with me. As we enter the whirlwind of the holiday season, I want to take a few minutes before I bring in some incredible guests to chat about something that many runners experience this time of year. It is the dreaded holiday running slump. Because let's face it, between shorter daylight hours, packed schedules, and downright freezing weather, the endless allure of holiday treats all beckoning, it's easy to let our running routine slide to the back burner. But don't worry, I've got some practical, doable strategies to help you stay consistent, keep moving, and maybe even find a little extra sparkle in your miles during this festive season. So let's dive in. First, I'm going to suggest that you go by time, not mileage. So when your schedule feels tight or you feel overwhelmed by your mileage, focus on running for a set of time instead of stressing over hitting specific distances, because we know that a 20-minute run is better than skipping it altogether, or maybe even convincing yourself that you'll do it later, and later doesn't happen. So we want to keep our routine intact, focus on that time to get you out the door, get on the treadmill, and get in some movement for the day. And of course, continue to stay consistent. Which brings us to the next one. Sometimes when you can't get into those really longer workouts, maybe this is a good time of year, a great season, if you will, to embrace shorter but more intense workouts. So if those long runs are feeling a little daunting, try shorter, higher intense sessions like hill repeats, intervals, or a quick tempo run. You'll get a great workout in less time, leaving more room for holiday activity. Now, tip number 3 is embracing exercise confetti, because you can break up your workouts into smaller chunks of movement, sprinkle throughout the day. Think 10 minutes here, 15 minutes there. It all adds up. It makes it easier to fit into our busy schedule. For me, I'm going to go ahead and use this as a little personal example. I am incorporating mobility in little 5-minute chunks throughout the day, especially since I spend a lot of time in front of the computer or talking with clients on meeting calls. I want to make sure that I can pop into a little bit of mobility sessions here and there. So I schedule those on in and get them on the books with a little bit of confetti. And as I already mentioned, that is tip number 4, scheduling our runs and our workouts like appointments. So you're going to treat those workouts as non-negotiable appointments. Block off time on your calendar, set reminders, and communicate with loved ones to prioritize your fitness. In my time management, I use Pomodoro, which is a technique of tackling bigger projects with 25 minutes of chunks of focused work, 5-minute break, which has been known to increase efficiency. What I do in those 5-minute breaks, get some water, get a mobility session in. It is absolutely guaranteed to do the best of both worlds, getting our work done and still getting in a little merry mobility and focused fitness time. Which brings me to the next tip, of course, which is tip number 5. You're going to make your workouts festive. Get into the holiday spirit with themed runs, find routes with festive lights, wear a Santa hat or a reindeer outfit like Melina did. Create a holiday playlist to keep your runs cheerful and fun. And if you're having difficulty getting those holiday playlists, head over to the Extraordinary Strides Spotify profile. There are so many holiday playlists there for you, my friend. We've done the work for you, so all you have to do is cue it on up and get out that door. Which brings us to tip number 6, and that is recruiting accountability buddies. Running with friends or joining a virtual community can make you feel more motivated, share your goals, celebrate your wins together. It makes the miles feel easier and the experience more rewarding. Of course, the Extraordinary Strides podcast collective community page is always here to cheer you on. But if that's not quite enough, then I'm going to bring us into our next tip, number 7, which is join fun, consistency-focused challenges. So accountability and community can make all the difference. And if you're part of the Extraordinary League, you already know how fun it is to stay consistent with a group. We are indeed coming up on the final 2 weeks of our holiday challenge now, but keep an eye out, my friends, because those winter blahs with our workouts aren't just going to magically go away on January 1st. So we'll have our 2025 challenges opening up soon. You're not going to want to miss these themes. Now we're on to tip number 8, which is rewarding ourselves, using small incentives to stay motivated, whether it's treating yourself to a cozy coffee, maybe peppermint mocha post-run, or splurging on new gear. Great way of doing that with splurging on new gear without breaking the bank is to have a little fitness coin, maybe a little marble that you add to a jar for every workout that you tackle. Have that bigger aim of that gear. Maybe you're looking to upgrade your Garmin or your watch, maybe your shoes, you want some new shocks. And every time you have a little fitness coin go into that bank or that marble, you're able to get your way to having a little extra splurging money for rewarding all of that incredible fitness that you've been gaining to get you out the door. Which brings us to tip number 9. You're going to focus on maintenance, not perfection. A conversation I have a lot with athletes and clients is to say, good, better, best. This may not be the season to absolutely aim for perfection. Spoiler alert, there's never a season you should be aiming for perfection, but doing just our good or a little bit better each day is absolutely the way we should approach this time of year if we know that it's already frenzied and frenetic and we're just having to figure out how to schedule it in. So focusing on consistency, which will always beat out perfection, and thinking of movement being our real focus of this season. And if that's not sufficient, then maybe 10 is the tip for you. And the real focus is grace. Give yourself grace, my friend. Be kind to yourself. Slumps happen. Missing a run or two is not going to derail your entire progress. Listen to your body. Honor your needs. Remember that showing up, even imperfectly, is an extraordinary act all in itself. Now that we've tackled some of that practical advice, it's time to bring on 2 guests who truly embody the idea of finding joy and creativity in their running, even during the busiest of seasons. And they've got some ideas for you to help break any of those running slumps that you may have. Up first, my friend, is Ian Hirth, a runner who has done it all. He's Boston qualified, he's done marathons, ultras, he's done the World Marathon Majors, and yet he's found a unique way to leave his mark on runDisney events. He has partaken in the Dead Last Start crew, and Ian has made charity, fun, and community central to his running journey. And you're going to hear a little bit about how he was able to break through some of his running slump with this kind of approach. And he truly brings so much joy to this beautiful sport of ours of running and community. I cannot wait for you guys to meet him. So without further ado, welcome to Extraordinary Strides, Ian.
Thank you for having me, Christine.
So friends, just so that you know, I had the pleasure of meeting Ian a couple times at runDisney, and I don't even know if you remember us previously at a World Marathon Major event, but I think I picked his brain for probably a solid 20 minutes at the start line of the events at our previous runDisney event. And I asked him right then and there, I was like, okay, instead of me just asking you all these questions and annoying you here, let's ask if you could come on to the podcast. So he's got so much great information to give. But first, Ian, we're going to start with a fun question. If you could have any Disney character join you for the full marathon of Dopey Weekend, who would it be? And what advice would you hope to get from them?
I would have to say I would love to run a marathon with Goofy.
And why?
I'm not sure I'd expect a huge amount of advice from Goofy, but It would sure be a whole lot of fun. And I think when the race gets tough, I'd probably be laughing so much, just probably wouldn't even realise that it was getting hard.
And I feel like he might be the perfect running partner because you guys are both about the same height. So you might actually be able to keep alongside each other for the entire marathon. Okay. So special shout out to Disney. If you guys ever want to have Goofy come out there and run the full 26.2, we know exactly who's going to run with you and keep you moving and grooving. Okay, my friend, Disney does have a special place in your heart. But before that, you, as I mentioned in the intro, you kind of tackled it all. How did your running start?
Well, how did I get into running? Well, I literally just fell into it. And when I say fell into it, I did literally fall into it. So a little over 12 years ago, I didn't run. I couldn't even run for a bus. I was unfit, overweight, and the only exercise I did was when I played golf at the weekends. And then one morning I was just having a shower, getting ready for work, and I slipped and fell in the shower. and I landed on my shoulder, ended up with a frozen shoulder, and the doctors basically said, yeah, you won't be able to play golf for at least 6 months. I was at home, I was bored, going kind of stir crazy, and I had to find something to do. And I was watching the London Marathon on telly, and I thought maybe I'll give running a go. I didn't own any running shoes, any shorts, any kind of running gear. So I went down to the outlet mall, bought some kit, and I'll never forget that first run. It was a 1.5 mile run, and by the end of it, I thought I was going to die. It was so hard, but I actually enjoyed it. Just getting out and getting off the couch.
Okay, so I have to ask, because there's so many questions. You literally did fall into it, and which is amazing to hear. How is it possible that it was just 12 years ago? Did you have an athletic background at all? I know you didn't feel fit at that time, but childhood sports or football?
No, I used to play a bit of football as a kid, but not a huge amount. I didn't enjoy running at school. I never did cross country, and if I could get out of PE, then I would. But no, I'd never really done any kind of sport.
So you do this first race after seeing London, or this first run, I should say. Mm-hmm. When you're seeing London, are you even comprehending 26.2? Is there a call that you want to do that race specifically?
No, I think when I started, it was just something to kind of pass some time. But then a very good friend of mine, he ran Brighton Marathon, which was actually, I think it was a week or two after the London Marathon I was watching on telly. And I didn't even know he was training for the marathon. I hadn't seen him for a while. And yeah, he ran the marathon, and he looked in really good shape, because, to be fair, we were both overweight at the time. And yeah, I think then within a few weeks, I was losing a lot of weight, and I was feeling so much better kind of about myself. And I think within 3 months, I'd signed up to a running club, and then I'd signed up for my first marathon, which would have been 8 months. 8 months the following, 8 months time.
Wow. Was the marathon distance your first race?
It was the first race I'd signed up for. I'd done a couple of races, 10K and a half, as kind of in my training. But yeah, that was the marathon was the first race I'd properly done.
Well, congratulations. It's unfathomable to me that you've had so much accomplishment in a decade, or just over a decade. I do feel like we had a running boom around that time. We're having another running boom right now. We're welcoming a lot of new people to start. So I assume when you decided to sign up for this marathon, you didn't potentially think that you were going to go. Did you think you were going to go much further? Was it just the tip of the iceberg, or you just wanted to try it that one time?
No. When I signed up for Brighton, I thought it would be one and done. I had no aspirations of, running. I think I've now run 87 marathons. But yeah, I think that one race, I just absolutely loved the race. Having random strangers cheer your name, it was all a bit surreal at the time. And I kind of had a goal in mind for the race. I was kind of hoping to run just under 4 hours. I actually finished the race in 4 hours 10, and that kind of gave me that. Okay, maybe we'll do this again and get that sub 4.
And then you just kind of kept going from there.
Yeah, and then literally, I think we'd had a few beers in the pub after the race, and by the end of that evening, I'd signed up for Chicago Marathon, which was 6 months, in 6 months' time.
Was that your first major?
That was my first major. Yeah.
At that time, were you aware of the World Marathon Majors?
Nope. No, I'd run Chicago and still wasn't aware of the World Marathon Majors at the time.
So where did things start to click for you that you knew that there was all sorts of running goals or running items to add to your list?
Yeah, so I think, I think even when I ran Chicago, although I PB'd in Chicago, I think I ran 4 hours 2. I still had that goal of running sub 4. And I think from my point of view, so Brighton is probably the second or third biggest marathon in the UK. Obviously, Chicago, was a massive race. And I was always looking for those big races, where you get that real big crowd support, because for me, that's a real big driver in performance in races, is getting that crowd support. And I had such a great time in Chicago. I put my name down in the ballot for New York the following year. And that's when I started and kind of found out about the World Marathon Majors.
Did each marathon progressively get you closer to your goal, even though I feel like it's like a moving target? But
yeah, and I think that's what I love about running. I had aspirations of breaking 4 hours, but then once I broke that 4 hours, it was okay. What can I do next? Can I break 350? Can I break 345? And I think when I got down to 330, that was like, okay, what is next? And then you kind of think, okay, can I actually get down to, running qualifying times? So can I run a qualifier to get into London? Can I run a Boston qualifier? So yeah, it was always about then getting that progressive time and improving.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think because, again, speed is not my forte. The GFA for London is actually a little bit more stringent than the Boston qualifying time, or are they similar?
They are very similar.
Okay.
Certainly when I first qualified for London back in 2017.
Okay. So where do we go from World Marathon Majors? You love these really big events to, as you mentioned, kind of always having that little extra something new to discover. Where did you go next?
So it was, obviously I had the goal of running all six World Marathon Majors. And I think I was very lucky at that point where I had qualifying times to get into New York, Chicago, Boston, and London. So I'd set myself a goal to run all 6 marathon majors back to back and get my 6-star in London in my home city race. And yeah, I did that as quite a big fundraiser to do, six World Marathon Majors in, what was that, probably 5 months.
What year was this?
So I did Berlin in 2017. Mm-hmm. So September 2017 was Berlin, Chicago in October 17, New York, November 17, then Tokyo, February 18, and then Boston and London, April 18.
Incredible. So I want to mention or point out that there was that period where after 2020, where we did see a lot of folks tackle the World Marathon Majors within a year, but it was a really special time where a lot of the dates were moved and kind of, they were jockeyed around in the race calendar that made it a little bit easier. So you tackled it kind of before that happened, when you really had to dedicate 2 calendar years, essentially, and the entire race season to it. That's incredible. So London is such an extraordinary opportunity. And I know that folks usually say, like, what should I plan for my final marathon of the World Marathon Majors? And I always say, well, you take them how you can, however you can get into them. But if you could, that's definitely the party to be able to put the little perfect cap to the race. Truly, it's the only time I've ever been at a race where I couldn't find the aid stations because there were so many people. It's you just get lost in the process. So I went to a convenience store and got myself a beer for the course, but that's totally different. So along this process, you have also endeavored ultra endurance events, multi-stage events, including, I consider Dopey a little bit of a multi-stage ultra because between the parks and the early wake ups. What made you decide to get into runDisney events?
So this is an odd one, how I got into runDisney. I was never really a Disney fan. Can
I interrupt for friends that aren't seeing? As we have this conversation, above his head is like Disney themed artwork. So I just assumed that the answer is going to be that you've been a lifelong Disney fan. But okay, you never were into Disney.
I'd never run Disney. And in 2018, my friends convinced me to go to Paris to run Disneyland Paris. And I didn't really get the whole meeting characters, getting dressed up in costumes. I was there in just my normal kind of running gear, but it was just such a different race. The atmosphere was just so different to any other race you've run. And yeah, I just fell in love with runDisney and Disney overall.
Okay, so have you tackled runDisney? As far as we know, as of right now, Disneyland doesn't seem to be bringing back the races. Who knows? To be determined in Paris, at least. We have Disneyland here stateside that's brought it back. You've run in 3 of the parks. I know there's a few other Disney-sponsored runs and races, like I think of Brazil, but is there a favorite park so far that kind of has your heart?
I really enjoy Disneyland California. I think it's obviously it's slightly smaller than Disney World, but you can get so much done in the times you're there. And I've only ever done the one race weekend at Disneyland when the races come back last year. But just running the 5K at Disneyland, fully enclosed within the parks, starting at the end of Main Street it was just great fun.
Between us, did you tear up just a little bit? Or is it just me who tears up when I tear up when I see Main Street? I just always do. Okay. I'm curious, you already touched on it. There is a very different atmosphere with runDisney and the community at runDisney versus some other races. What, if you could put your finger on it, to like 2 or 3 key differences, what would you say they would be?
Everyone says it's like runDisney is like a family. It's very cliched, but I honestly believe it is. I've been very lucky and I've run, multiple race weekends. And, you just get to meet some of the nicest people. And yeah, they're just very fun. That I certainly find them a lot more relaxing than running, a major, or actually any other kind of race. Because certainly for me, my goals are very different running at runDisney than if I'm running a marathon major. I'm there more for having a lot of fun than running for a particular time.
Seeing you at runDisney and the community at runDisney, I feel like there's usually just like this effusive level of joy with runDisney that maybe, although I love running and I love all the other races as well, that joy isn't it doesn't permeate as much. There's just something about a little extra bit of lightness there. But I'm curious then, if you kind of came to runDisney later in your career too, when did it start to really resonate with you that there's all sorts of different, and I'm using your words, shenanigans that you could get into with runDisney? When did you first hear about all these different things, specifically Dead Last Start?
So I first found out about Dead Last Start when I ran Princess in 2023.
Okay.
So it was quite it wasn't a great time for me from a running point of view. Coming out of COVID and lockdowns, I was really struggling with injuries. And then I got long COVID for a while, and it really made running hard. And I kind of wasn't falling out of love with running, but it was just becoming a real struggle. And then my girlfriend at the time said, well, why don't you Dead Last Start and try and do something a bit different and, give yourself a different target. So, if you can come, you can run and catch up with me and then we can finish the race together. It'll be something a bit different. And it was just doing a Dead Last Start. It kind of just really opened up my eyes to a kind of a different, not just a different way of running, but a really different perspective on a race.
Okay, for folks that are listening, it is in the name, but just in case, if you could give more parameters around what actually is Dead Last Start.
Yeah, so the Dead Last Start game. So David Thompson from runDisney Run started Dead Last Start, and his aim was to basically show that you could run a good race from whatever corral you're assigned, and that the race experience is what you make it and not what someone dictates to you. And basically the idea of Dead Last Start is that you are sacrificing whatever corral you've been assigned. And, I always have a proof of time, which generally puts me in corral A.
Mm-hmm.
And you're basically sacrificing that start corral to start dead last. So you're literally crossing the start line just ahead of the balloon ladies. And then the idea is you can then see how many people that you can pass during the race. And I think from a Dead Last Start point of view, we kind of declare that we're going to be doing Dead Last Start, a week or two before the race weekend. And then we will always meet at the very back of the crowd. Actually, probably nowadays we kind of hang out outside of the last corral. And then before every race, we have the talk. So this is where someone, either David Thompson or Brian Davis or another experienced Dead Last Start runner will basically go through the rules of Dead Last Start. And we just make it really clear that, Dead Last Start runners are completely responsible for passing safely and respectfully, making sure that we're not pushing or cutting people off, and make it really, really clear that, we've sacrificed our position on the start line and we've basically given every other runner within that race, prior rights to the course.
Right.
And I think that's kind of why we do this kind of declaration before the race, so that there's that accountability, so that, everyone knows you're doing it. They've got your bib number. So, if you do something, cut someone off, push someone, it's easy to find. And that's kind of how we do it, to make sure everyone's doing it in that kind of safe, respectful way. And what I really like is a comment that someone made a couple of races ago, that dead last start runners are like ghosts. You really shouldn't know that you're kind of on the course or you're doing dead last start.
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing it the right way, then you really are a ghost on the course.
So a couple of things that come to mind in that, because there was a few questions that I had when I first heard of it. It isn't that the aim or purpose of it in any means is to make anybody feel bad because you're able to rush past them or push past them to get to a character. It really is to just prove that no matter where you're at, be it A, B, C, D, E, and beyond, that you're able to enjoy it. And you guys also have really tackled this as part of charity as well, because there's a lot of dead last start runners that will tackle this and associate it with charity and a nonprofit that they're raising funds for. How does that work?
Yeah, so charity is and has become quite a big part of dead last start. And there are various ways that people can sort of do that or raise that money for charity. So even if you're not taking part in dead last start, we get runners who nominate themselves as designated targets. So these are people that will start in an earlier corral, so maybe B or C.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone who's dead last started catches them within the race, they will donate a specific amount, whatever they disclosed, mm-hmm. to whatever charity they're running for. And then dead last starters will have a different way of fundraising, either by donating a percentage. In the last race at Wine and Dine, I did a $5 donation for every character stop within the race.
Okay.
That you could do, and then some people did $5 for every percentage of the field that they've passed. So there's different ways, and then obviously friends and family can then also make pledges to say they're going to donate X amount for every percent of the field you pass. So it's a really fun way of raising money for charity.
Absolutely. It sounds like everybody wins in this situation, quite literally.
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
So a couple other things that kind of come to mind that I just want to clarify when you say that you're kind of giving up your spot. Generally, for folks that aren't familiar with runDisney or even bigger events with corrals, you're usually seated into that corral. And usually most races allow you to move back, but you can't move forward. So this is usually a really big deal. This is something that I hadn't heard of until Dead Last Start at runDisney. But I think that you've tackled this Dead Last Start mentality and have taken it to other races. If I heard correctly, I think you're considering it for Chicago or have done it for Chicago.
Yeah. So this year, I was fortunate to have places at Berlin and Chicago this year. And I kind of toyed with it in Berlin, and I dead last started at the back of wave 1, which was great. I had probably not one of my fastest races at Berlin because I wasn't really race fit. But just from a race experience, I found that the course was, open. It wasn't too congested, and it was a great race experience. So then we took that to Chicago. So there was a small group of us from runDisney who were doing Chicago, and we decided to dead last start in Chicago. And again, the course was open. I was really surprised running a World Marathon Major from the back, how well you can run, and how wide actually open the course was for someone starting right at the back of the field.
I find that's a fascinating perspective I'm curious, like I'm thinking logistically though, there have to be other things that you need to plan for that maybe you wouldn't need to plan for if you were in your designated corral. Are aid stations still stocked? Do you need to be able to self-support? What are some tips that you would give for people who are maybe considering this?
Yeah, I think it all depends. So certainly from a World Marathon Majors point of view, in my experience, certainly Berlin, Chicago, all the aid stations were fully stocked. And yeah, we had no issues in that respect. I think from a Disney point of view, certainly from this last race weekend, where it was exceptionally warm, certainly in the half marathon.
I'm going to interrupt you though. It was exceptionally warm, but he was wearing a full suit, like a full, like head to toe. Like he could have been a Disney character himself, my friend. So it may have been a little warmer for him as well. But okay, go ahead. I digress.
Yeah, and I think you just need to be aware that actually potentially there could be some issues with aid stations, certainly coming towards the end of the race, and you just have to kind of plan for that. And if you're holding on to a cup of water for a little bit longer, then just do that.
It feels, and correct me if I'm wrong, it feels a bit freeing to tackle dead last start because it's almost like you have to throw out expectations. You should still plan to of course do the things within the parameters and to be respectful to your fellow runners, but kind of you just appreciate the joy and the aspect of movement versus executing race day strategy flawlessly.
Yeah, no, exactly. And, what I've really learned from dead last start is having that kind of spatial awareness, knowing when a gap opens up, that gap is going to still be there when you make a move to pass. And I think that experience really helped when I was trying to dead last start in a marathon major. Okay,
so I feel like I could talk about this forever, but I'm gonna ask you because you touched on something as well. You kind of fell out with running. A lot of things kind of happened. When people hear you outside looking in, Ian, to be honest with you, it's like, okay, this is just somebody who's a natural runner. It comes easily to him. Sure, you have to train, but it's still something that's very easy. It sounds like outside looking in that this is just something that you're just good at. It happens naturally. Realistically, that's likely not the way that it goes down, even for elites, my friend. So if you think that it's the fast runners or elites are not going to ever have bad days, it definitely happens, or bad training seasons. What would you say helps to keep you motivated during those lulls in our running journey?
I think the key thing is to have goals. And even if those goals, you're not reaching those goals, that's it's okay, as long as, if you can kind of make sure you've got a path to get there. And I think what I found is when I was really struggling was actually just make sure you're mixing up your training. Go somewhere completely different. Go somewhere different for a run. If you keep running the same routes, it all gets a little bit stale. Mix up your paces a little bit, mix up who you're running with. I think that all kind of helps just to keep it fresh and keep you on track.
Spice being the variety, like that variety being the spice of life, especially our running journey, which brings me to the next question. You nailed it. You have tackled so many different things. You keep it fresh. What are some of your favorite memories from running? runDisney or World Marathon Majors, or maybe even just a training run?
I think my two most memorable races, certainly London in 2018 when I got my 6-star medal. Having so many friends and family, in my home city, coming down to support was incredible. And then probably my second was probably in Berlin 2019 when I ran my first sub 3. That was an incredible race, and it still feels a little bit surreal now to think that I could run a sub 3 in Berlin. And I just remember making that turn, that final turn where you come around the corner, you can see the Brandenburg Gate, and you look at your watch and think, yeah, I've only got 600 meters to go, and all I need to do is finish, and I've got that sub 3. And you were talking about tearing up on Main Street.
Teared up, okay.
running through the Brandenburg Gate when you know you've got that sub 3. That was very emotional.
Friends, I do not have a sub 3 in me, and still running through the Brandenburg Gate is still very emotional. It's so beautiful. That's what I love about running, is that it gives you truly a world opportunity of seeing things. It's like a 26-mile tour on foot through these incredible cities and historic sites, or through runDisney, or whatever the case may be. Okay, so you've had truly amazing running journey. I feel like every runner, as you progress through running, we start to tick off all these things if we're goal focused, which most of us are. That's why we gravitate towards the sport. What could possibly be left on your running bucket list? I mean, I feel like you've done it all.
So I think my next big one on my bucket list is aimed at Chicago next year. So in Chicago next year, I want to not only dead last start the race, but I want to Boston qualify and truly show that it doesn't matter where you start from, you can run a good race. And I think that's going to be, it's going to be a big event next year, because we've got a team of 97 dead last starters signed up for American Cancer Support. And we've got a whopping target of £200,000 to raise.
It's about, I'd say like 275, 300 guys. I'm not doing the exchange. I can't Google it right now, but it is, I think, about $275 US, $275,000.
$200,000, because it's $200,000. So
okay, so yeah, quite a bit.
Yes.
Granted, it's a great big team, but still. So, do you have your fundraising page up so that folks can, if they want to make some donations to an incredible cause and support dead last starters?
Yes. Yeah, we do. So we've already started our fundraising. I think our team's been up now for, how long ago was Chicago? 4 weeks. But yeah, we've already raised $30,000 already.
Okay, so friends, we're going to have that link in episode notes that you guys can head on over and support. Not only just the fact that to thank Ian and the Dead Last Starters for kind of giving us a different perspective on running and what it means, but also because they truly do make their miles extra magical by supporting such incredible causes. With that said, I call them big, audacious goals. That's a big, audacious goal. And I know that you've got so many other fun things on your list that we're still scratching the tip of the surface of all the things that you've got going on in your running. What would you suggest to folks that maybe are getting started, or maybe they've turned that corner where they're like, what's next for me in my running?
I think it's to have that goal. And I think if you're starting out, when I started out, my goal was just to keep me occupied while I couldn't play golf. And then it kind of very quickly progressed from, so I'm enjoying it. So yeah, let's do some races. And I think it's good. It's always good to have that goal and have that race that you're kind of targeting to go for.
Have to ask, since you specifically mentioned golf, do you still golf, or has running kind of taken the top spot for you?
Yes, I've not played golf since I fell and injured myself.
Okay.
But I was so just before just before COVID hit. So I was signed up to do the London Marathon, and I was aiming to do a world record. Because if you're going to do a world record attempt, you got to do it at London. That's the place to do it.
Yeah.
And my world record attempt was to run the fastest marathon dressed as a golfer.
I can see that. I can. Okay. Yeah. Are you bringing that back to the list?
Yeah, I think I will. I think I will do one day.
Okay.
Yeah, it was unfortunate because I was in the shape of my life just before lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
That was 3 weeks before the London Marathon.
Same, my friend. Yeah, I was so on track to have like the best race of my life at Tokyo when it was shut down, but it's okay because it gave us a perspective of appreciation. So when we were able to come back to sport and get together with our community, it really just it resonates as to why this is such an important part of our lives.
Yeah, no, exactly.
With that said, I want to thank you so very much because I really feel like you have so much knowledge, but what you really do bring to the table more than anything else in this conversation is that there is joy to be had in all aspects of our running, whether we're at the best part of our lives in our fitness capacity, or we're really learning how to just enjoy every single step. And I love that you're giving back to the community. Thank you so very much.
No, thank you for your time. Thank you. It's been fun.
Again, my friends, don't forget about supporting Ian and his quest for raising funds, because we're going to bring in another incredible guest who is also doing the same thing. They're tackling on very similar challenges. They both have so much joy for this sport. I cannot wait for you to meet her. So with that said, this particular individual, Pearl, brings a lot of sparkle and joy to every single run and race day. Her energy is over the top infectious. She is a runDisney enthusiast, but she talks quite a bit about how she has some love for other races as well. She also has the most incredible running skirt collection I have ever seen. She has her own dead last start adventures to share with us. Pearl, welcome to the podcast, friend.
Hello, thank you, and thanks for having me.
I'm so excited. I have so many questions to ask, but let's kick things off with something a little bit easy peasy. So if you had to choose one of your absolute favorite race day skirts and outfits, what would it be?
Oh, that is so hard because I just don't like picking favorites. But so I'll just tell you like my most recent favorite skirt is my emotion skirt. So it is joy on the top and it has a little ribbon of sadness on the bottom and anger pockets.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I think the pocket should be hunger though. Like I know that's emotions, but I'm always feeling a little hangry. Okay, yeah. So emotion skirt from inside out. And you have how many running skirts?
Okay, I don't like to count because then I have to admit to how many that I've purchased.
Let's ballpark it.
So I'm going to ballpark it at probably somewhere between 50 and 75.
Okay, that's more. That's not. It's probably more, but we're gonna pretend in this. We're gonna go into the land of Lulu.
It fills up one side of the closet, and it probably should be two rows, but I don't have two rows. So, but it fills up one. So it's they're all stuffed in there, and I do a thing where I'm not allowed to wear the skirts that I've just washed. So the ones that are hanging up and drying, I cannot pull from that rack. I have to pull from out of the closet to make sure that I'm wearing all of my skirts. So when anybody says, or if my husband or my mom's like, you have too many skirts, I'm like, no, I'm wearing them all. I'm wearing them all. So that's how I do it.
That's brilliant for the record. We should all take a page from that with all of our clothes. I tend to pick the same outfits over and over again because it's just easy. Okay. How did you get started, my friend? Was it because of running skirts where you're like, I'm getting into any sport that I can justify my shopping addiction for? Or what got you started with running?
No, actually, it was a friend of mine was like, Pearl, let's do this race at Animal Kingdom. And she's like, it's so cool. And we're going to go, we're going to do a 5K. And then there's going to be a scavenger hunt afterwards. And it's at Disney. And I was like, okay, you had me at Disney. Okay. But you know, I don't run unless somebody's chasing me. And she's like, oh, it's going to be fun. You could do it. So I did the Couch to 5K app and we were getting all ready. And then Disney didn't have the races that year. That's like the year that they stopped doing that race. And so she was like, don't worry. They're not having the race. I went to sign up, but they're not going to do it this year. But we're going to do something else. So we ended up doing a color run. And we actually ended up traveling to Georgia to do a color run there when they have them here in Florida, but we traveled.
Right.
So my first ever like 5K, like official 5K was a color run in Georgia. And 5Ks are the gateway drug. They are. Like you do a 5K and then the next thing you know, you're like, well, if I can do a 5K, then I'll sign up for a 10K. And so we did. So we ended up signing up for the inaugural Dark Side. And that was my first Run Disney race. And I was hooked after that. That was like the most fun thing that I'd ever done. I still have the costume. I was Lord Vaderess. That's what I called it. So I just had the best time. And so then it was, I think there was 3 dark sides before they changed it to dark side, light side. So I did all of those races before they changed it to Springtime Surprise. But I did the 10K and then like the next time I ended up signing up for the challenge. And so ever since then, like most of the time when I do a Disney race, it's a challenge. I find it hard, like when I go to other races, when I'm not running more than one race, it's kind of weird to me. Like
what? I'm supposed to do this like on well-rested legs? What kind of nonsense is that?
Right? Like, why did I travel here and only run one race? That's just like weird. So
I am hearing you talk about traveling a little bit. Do you tend to enjoy traveling for races?
I like to travel, period. But I don't necessarily like seek out to, I'm not chasing 50 states. I'm not like, although I would like to run a race in every state, but I'm not like I'm not like chasing that actively. So I just like to do things that are like fun. And, of course, like I'm a member of BGR, Black Girls Run. And so whenever there's a meetup, like I'm at the meetup. So an official meetup or the official Black Girls Run conference, I'm there. So I like to travel, but it's not necessarily to run.
Now, your friend that brought you into running, is she a BGR member as well? And you guys immediately kind of became part of your local chapter? Or is this something you discovered along the process of running?
Yeah, I discovered BGR along the process of running. And actually, the friend who got me into running, we aren't really friends anymore.
Oh, I thought that once a running friend, always a running friend.
She doesn't really, I don't think she really runs, but
Okay.
like we just kind of fell out of touch. So
yeah, it happens.
It was a friend through church and I don't really go to that church anymore. And I'm not even sure if she does or not. But so we kind of fell out of touch in that sense. So but I found BGR at a Miles from Moffitt. So like if it's about cancer research, I sign up and try to do that. And I was at a Miles from Moffitt race and there was some girls running and I saw them running. It said BGR and I was like, what's that? And so then I went and looked it up and then I joined my local chapter, Black Girls Run Tampa.
That's awesome. And friends, again, check out the national website if you're curious about joining BGR and find your local chapter, such an incredible organization. So yeah, love that. Okay, so tell me, we heard a little bit about what got you into it, but it kind of also sounds very idyllic and happy and like joyful constantly. Was it always joyful along this process? Is that like your aim of your game? Like if you can't find joy with it, you're just not going to do it?
Oh no, every run starts out of like, why am I doing this? Like you have to get to like mile 2 or 3 before you're like, oh yeah, I like doing this. Like it's hard. Like for me, like every run is kind of like, okay, get up, get out the bed, go do your run. You don't have to do, like sometimes I have to tell myself, just go out and walk a mile. And then it ends up turning into a run. But sometimes I am not motivated, like like I do have to get like to mile 2 or 3 before I'm like, oh yeah, I love running.
I feel you on this 100%. So tell me, like, clearly you've done quite a few different races now. Have you kept tally? I know you say you don't like to keep count of your skirts. You keep tally of your runs?
Actually, I started a spreadsheet. So I have done a total of, I think, if I haven't missed anything, about 66 races. And my runDisney count is about 40. So mostly runDisney. So 5 15Ks, 4 10-milers, 17 halves. Oh wow, I didn't even know that. So yeah, I have a little spreadsheet that I keep updating.
So what's your favorite distance?
I like the half. I like the half.
I mean, you have to tell me a little bit more why. Why is the half your jam, especially since you've done so many challenges, which are back-to-back race days?
I like the half because I feel like I really have to train for that. And I feel like you know, once I complete a half, I really felt like I've done something. Not as much as when I completed the marathon. I really felt like I did something there.
Did you
But
cry?
I've only done one marathon. I did a Dopey
Wait.
2 years ago.
Are you serious? You've only done Dopey as your marathon?
Yeah.
First of all of you folks that choose to do Dopey as your very first marathon, I give you so much credit. I think it's incredible. I can't imagine it. I'm so fearful of those. First of all, I'm so fearful of 4 early wake ups. Like, I just don't think that.
That was the worst part of it.
So we're going to talk about that. What made you decide to go from, I assume, half marathon at that point to Dopey?
It was my running partner. I was in the runDisney run group. Okay.
Yeah.
So people are posting, oh, look at the Dopey medals and look at this. And I'm like, oh, I'm so jealous. This is making me jealous. And I posted that it's making me jealous, like that people are posting their Dopey stuff. And my running partner, it's funny because my son was in this nationally recognized band in Tarpon Springs, and her son was also in that band. But I didn't like we weren't like friends. Mm-hmm. And she responded and she was like, well, why don't we sign up? And I was like, okay, are you going to train with me? And she said, yeah, I've been looking for somebody to train with. I did not put it together. Like me and her husband actually worked in first aid together for the band.
No way.
Yeah. So it was
cool.
Like, oh, and my son was like, Mom, you know her, you know Chase, you know her son. I was like, and then I was like, band people, you're like, okay, what instrument? Oh, he's a saxophone. I was like, oh, him? Really? And so instant friends.
Oh, that's awesome. So you guys did officially train together.
Yeah, we did until like she's in the medical profession. She's a pediatric nurse practitioner. Mm-hmm. And so people in the medical profession, you make plans, but you understand that those plans might change.
Yeah, quite often
on what happens with their work schedule. So
right.
I run with a lot of people, like half my friends are in the medical profession. I don't know why. I guess I'm just attracted to them. I don't know why. I am not in the medical profession. I am a website developer. I do not know medical.
I'm with you. Most of my best girlfriends are like licensed mental health or LCSWs, which I don't know what that says specifically about me, that I seem to chase after these individuals. But right. Yeah, I've got you. I feel you on this. So it must be something that I feel like grounds me with them. Okay, so you guys kind of trained together, but you did both have the same focus of Dopey.
Right.
Sure.
So it started off with a wine and dine, mm-hmm. and I'm a Galloway girl. So mm-hmm. I took the Galloway training plan, but we stretched it out over an entire year and some change, because we started with the wine and dine, not the wine and dine right before the next Dopey, but the one that was the following year.
Oh, that's so smart.
So we took it really, really slow. And it was very smart of us because I ended up getting injured at some point, and then her work schedule got all crazy, but we had all that training behind us because we
Mm-hmm.
had started so early. So I got into physical therapy and was still able to do it. And then she, her husband is also an avid runner, and actually he ends up in Corral A. So like he's most of
Okay.
the time he's on the shorter distances, he's finished before we start because we're like Corral D, E, F people, and he's always in Corral A. So like he always finishes before we start on the 10K and the 5Ks. But so she got to train with him when her schedule got all wonky. And then I
Mm-hmm.
did a lot of the training, the marathon, on the longer distances I did some of that alone, which I don't recommend. Um, I don't like that. I give that 2 thumbs down. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. That's
That's
how I feel
amen.
about
It's one of my favorites. Yes, absolutely.
it.
But it does make me think, though, I'm going to say that occasionally it's good because it does prepare you for some of a little bit of, to quote Inside Out, a little bit of the ennui that you feel, that little bit of boredom and
Yeah.
those latter, like those weird miles. Not that that happens as much at runDisney, but it's bound to happen if you're running endurance at some point or the other. Okay, so did you guys run the race together?
So we have this thing on the shorter distances. Whatever corral we end up in, we do that. But for the marathon, we all three ran together. So Brooke ran with us as well. Her husband ran with us, even though he's Corral A. We had our plan, and it was based off of Jeff Galloway. You do the 5K, the 10K, you walk the half to save your
Mhm.
legs for the marathon. And so we trained for this. And with the dopey, it's like, okay, the 5K, that's our normal training. Almost every day we're doing a 5K.
Mhm.
And then the 10K is like, okay, that's only twice of the 5K.
Mhm.
And again, a lot of times we were doing 5 or more miles at least 2 or 3 times a week. So, it's like those were things were nothing. And then walking the half, we did kind of walk most of it together, but we did our normal 5K routine, and then we walked because you want to try to get a little bit ahead of the balloon ladies.
Okay.
And so that was my philosophy. Let's get as far as we can before the sun comes up, and as far away from the balloon ladies as we can, and then we'll walk. And that's what we did. And then for the marathon, our goal was to finish.
Okay.
So however we finished, we finished. So we did our normal 5K routine. And then we settled into, I think at the time, like I was making it up as I was going along. Like I was following Jeff Galloway, but I was playing Coach Pearl. And so we had this thing where we were like, okay, I would do these like graduated intervals.
Okay.
And and the thing was to not tell my running partner Frankie, to not tell Frankie what the interval was. Because if I told her what it was, she'd be like, no, I think we should just do 30-30s. And I'd be like, no, we could do a little bit more than 30-30s.
Yeah.
So
I
would
like this.
I would push it to, so we start off probably like, I don't think we ever made it beyond like run 50 seconds and walk 30, but
Mhm.
I would try to get us up to that minute.
Right.
And then like I would just, when we were feeling tired, we'd back it down. And so there was like so many things that we could do. Like I would either reverse the intervals, like we were running
Mhm.
45-30s. If we got tired, I would reverse it and we would run 30 seconds and walk 45. Or we would just slow down to 30-30s. And then at one point, I told Jeff Galloway this at the expo, and he was like, well, there's another way you can accomplish that. But I don't exactly remember what he said. But in one of the run groups, someone said, try run a minute, walk 12. Like, and I was like,
Interesting.
that was
Walk
interesting.
12
I tried
minutes
that.
or walk 12 seconds?
12 minutes. So run a minute, walk 12.
Interesting. Okay.
So I tried that at a 15K before the race, and I was like, oh. So for the half marathon, we did our normal 5K. So like 3 miles, we were doing probably it was like a 45-30 interval or whatever.
Mhm.
And we always run the first mile. So we run the first mile, then you do 30 45s or 45-30s. And then we were like, okay, run a minute, walk 12. And so we would run a minute and walk 12. And that's how we completed the half marathon. And so in the marathon, we did our normal thing. And I was like, when we get tired, we'll run a minute, walk 12. And we did. So when we got to mile 20, that's when we had to, all of us were tired. The sun was up and we hit Blizzard Beach. Blizzard Beach parking lot. That is the bane of any runDisney marathon person's existence.
Tell us why. Because if anybody does, if for the new folks that are heading to the runDisney Facebook community page, first of all, don't spend too much time there right before race weekend because it might freak you out a little bit. But you're going to hear a lot about Blizzard Beach. Why is it such a infamous, a little bit of boredom, or what is it that causes issues at Blizzard Beach?
Because they list it as Blizzard Beach. But you don't go into Blizzard Beach. It is the parking lot. And you literally run around the edge of the parking lot. There are no characters. There are no water stops. It is literally go into the parking lot and run around the parking lot and come out of the parking lot. So it's
not the happiest or most magical part of the course, is what you're saying.
No, it's not. I feel like the road going up into Blizzard Beach is better than the Blizzard Beach.
Oh my goodness, that's so funny. So what I want to say here that I'm hearing from you, and I'm going to kind of just encapsulate it a little bit, is be super focused, even stubborn about your goal, which was for you to finish, but be super flexible about the means, like whatever it takes.
Yes.
Okay.
And she didn't tell me, but she was starting to have like some kind of thing with her heart rate. Like,
okay.
And so at one point we had to even back off of our minute, run a minute, walk 12, and we had to just walk. And like I got to start it. I was like, okay, it's time to run a minute. And she was like, I can't run. And I was like, okay. And we just walked, and we had made it to like, I think we were almost to Epcot at that point. So it was like, we were almost done. And she started crying. Like we were on the boardwalk. And I was like, no. You cannot cry now because it's hard to walk and run when you're crying. I was like,
you're going to get dehydrated.
Do that right now.
You need all of the fluids at this point.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm hearing in my head, I can literally hear like the audience screaming, like, but wait, what about the balloon ladies? Because you're talking about walking. Are you a really fast walker? Give us a little bit idea of the people who are very fearful of the balloon ladies.
So because of our plan and how we started off running and getting as far as we can before the sun comes up and as far as we can before the balloon ladies can catch us. I think we saw the balloon ladies at some point, when there's places where you're crossing things during the marathon. I'm pretty sure we saw them somewhere like around Blizzard Beach. But we finished well before the balloon ladies.
Okay.
So that run a minute, walk 12, I don't remember what the pace was on that, but it was certainly not enough where the balloon ladies could catch up with us. The thing about it is, it's math. If you go back to the days of if a train A is going this speed, and how long will it take for train B to catch train A? It would take a really longer distance for the balloon ladies to catch you, especially if you're doing more than a 16-minute pace. And you have a head start on them because they start last. Right. And they let everybody go, and then they start the balloon ladies, and the balloon ladies start and they hold a 16-minute pace. If they're going too fast, they will hold them back at like a water stop or whatever. They keep a true 16-minute pace. So as long as you can do at least 16, I would say even if you can do 17-minute pace, you should have no trouble with the balloon ladies. And here's the other thing. The balloon ladies are so nice. They're such nice individuals. They are pacers. Yeah. So if you want to hang out with the balloon ladies, they will welcome you. You can walk with them, run with them, as long as you can keep up at 16-minute pace. There's no reason to fear the balloon ladies. No reason at all.
I love this. I feel like we definitely need this on a t-shirt. Okay. You touched on it. You already said, unless if you finished last, which brings us to dead last start, because now you have partaken in this a few times, right? And you're going to be doing it again. Okay. So tell us, when did you hear about it? What is it? And why did you do it?
Okay, so I'd heard of Dead Last Start because my running partner's husband, Brooke, he actually did one without declaring it. So one time he's like, "Oh, I heard there's this Dead Last Start thing where you start and you see how far you can get." And he did that. So I had heard about it. And then this past springtime surprise, we were going to the place at the Polynesian, like with the Disney, it was either with Disney J Drickers or with Kelsey's Hope or one of my many running groups. We were meeting up at the bar that's at the Polynesian that has the Black Pearl. Can't remember.
Trader Sam's.
Yes, Trader Sam's.
Yep.
So we were waiting to get into Trader Sam's, and we were sitting next to Matt Crepes. I think is how you pronounce his last name. And has done a Dead Last Start. And this is like, they had a whole thing with stickers and everything. And he was like, we were talking, I'm a really friendly person. So we're talking, blah, 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 runDisney people, like we're family as soon as we meet each other. It's like, it's like we're best friends that haven't seen each other in a long time. And he's talking to me and he's like, you got to do this Dead Last Start thing with us, Pearl. And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, oh, just try it. You'll love it. I have stickers. And it was a hash brown sticker and a villain sticker. And I was like, he's got stickers. And so I did it for the stickers. And
oh my
so
gosh.
I'm like,
so are you saying stickers are like what the like candy in the white stranger danger van is for children? Like for us as adult runners, we're like, stickers, that's all it takes. We'll do whatever.
Stickers. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to try it. And so I tried it for the 10K. I got the speech about how, for Dead Last Start, you are pretty much giving your rights away to the course. You are saying everybody on the course has more right to this course than me. And if you are running, so there's two ways to do Dead Last Start. And so I ran the see how many people you can pass route at Springtime Surprise. So I was running to see. I'll start right before the balloon ladies and see how many people I can pass. And then Brian does this really cool chart thing and it shows you how many kills, which means the people that you started behind and you passed,
right.
And how many assassins. That means somebody started behind you and they pass you. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to try it. And I got a little speech and it's like, okay. And he tells you how like, when you're running, there's going to be the opportunity to pass people. So you slow down and like, because people run more than two abreast. Groups running two abreast end up running with each other.
Not the people who listen to Extraordinary Strides, because I know they know better.
Yeah. But even when you're running you could be running two abreast or you could be running just by yourself or what we call single file sisters. Yeah. And just because there's another group next to you, it'll look like you're four or five.
Yeah, of course.
And he's like, well, if you look for your opportunity, just wait for it because not everybody's going at the same pace. And he basically like gave us a crash course on how to zigzag. Okay. And so I had my instructions, had my don't be rude to people, and enjoy the course. And so I did, and I ended up like passing like 42% of the field when I got my chart. And I was like, oh my gosh. So like my chart was like number 4, number 5 of the charts. And so I forget who it was that was also there that day that like convinced me to join the Dead Last Start. It was her first Dead Last Start too. And so I saw her in line or in the corrals before we were starting the half. And she was like, Pearl, did you see your chart? Did you see your chart? And I was like, no, I didn't see it. Yeah. And I was like, I was very surprised. I was very surprised that I passed almost close to 50% of the people. Like I was very, very, very like excited. I was like, okay, I'm doing this every 10K from now on. So then this last race, I decided to take part in the shenanigans version of the Dead Last Starts. And that version is you see how many pictures, you try to get every single picture that you can. And so you start right before the balloon ladies. And actually the surprising thing is at the end of the race, the lines for the pictures are shorter. But I felt...
You just immediately, now there's going to be 500% of the field is going to be at the Dead Last Start now.
Yeah, the lines are shorter. But here's the thing. I felt like I was running like a really twisted version of intervals for this, because it was run to the first picture, take the picture, and like we are like the last people in line. They're the people on the bikes are coming in and they're like, the balloon ladies are 3 minutes behind you. And they're like, get your picture. So you end up making fast friends. And it's like, we'll all be in the picture together. So all my shots are group shots.
Oh, that's so much fun. Oh,
But it is so much fun. And you take the picture and then you take off to the next one. And we were trying to make sure that like some of our friends who are there was one guy who's runDisney, and there was one girl who was she has special needs.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were trying to make sure that we get in the line and wait for them to come and make sure they're there, get the picture. So I was on the trying to keep up with my friend Emily, who's way faster. I think her pace, she just ran Chicago, and I think her pace was like somewhere around 8 minutes or something like that. Like, I don't know why I was trying to keep up with her, but I was trying to. So I'm like, and I can do it for like, maybe half a mile. So I was just running like,
hey, that's great. Half a mile. Seriously, it's amazing.
Yeah. So it was crazy. And it was very fun. So I really enjoyed it. I did not enjoy when we were in Epcot or when we got to a certain spot and the balloon ladies actually passed us. So then that, like, I didn't enjoy that anxiety. Like I didn't like that whole, it was like, and we actually took the picture and then it was like, go, 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 go. So we just took off and we passed the balloon ladies and we still stopped for the next picture, but it was still, I'm not sure that I would like stick with the group the whole time. Maybe like
moving
some
forward
of the time and then go after. So but it was so enjoyable. I would tell everybody, you gotta do Dead Last Start at least twice. Do it once, seeing for kills, and do it once for shenanigans, just to see if you like it. It's fun.
I mean, it sounds amazing, except for the anxiety part, but that's okay. So it was anxiety on part. I didn't hear that she was part of your emotion skirt, or were you just feeling anxiety?
No. I stuck with the OG emotions on the emotion skirt. Although the person who I bought the fabric from, Melinda T. Hogue, she had made fabric with all the emotions. So there was anxiety, and I was close, but like, I don't have a money tree in my backyard, so I have to like. You have to have money to pay for the races too. So
I know, trust me, I've been planting it, but evidently I just don't have a green thumb. So I understand that. So speaking of the fact that you do bring so much joy though to every aspect of how you run, is Dead Last Start something that you feel like is in your continuation? Are you doing it again at runDisney?
Oh yes, absolutely. I'm
Anywhere
a villain
else?
now. That's what we call ourselves.
Okay.
I'm in the villains group, and I will Dead Last Start every 10K from now on. And I'm actually convinced me to Dead Last Start the half for marathon weekend.
Okay.
Because there is costuming involved. And,
okay.
And again, Matt, he again was like,
have a sticker.
Yes. He was like, and I hadn't even signed up for marathon weekend because I was like, I'm not running marathon weekend. And he was like, Pearl, you gotta. He's like, call Joe, which he's talking about from Kelsey's Hope. He's like,
right.
They probably have some bibs left. Call him and get a bib. So I ended up getting a bib for marathon weekend to run the half, so I could do the Dead Last Start with the villains.
So we know that the villains has your heart. Dead Last Start has your heart with runDisney. Clearly from your spreadsheet, runDisney is your jam. What's next outside of runDisney? And I'm going to come back to it, but I'm curious about what's next besides runDisney.
Besides runDisney, I have signed up for Chicago Marathon.
See, that's what I was getting at. She's bearing the lead. I knew I had heard that. And I was like, I know it was also very early when we discussed this about 4 o'clock in the morning, but I'm not going to forget this kind of a conversation. So you're not just doing Chicago though, which will be your second marathon, right?
Yes.
2025. You're also going to Dead Last Start there as well.
Yeah, because it's with the villains. We have a team of 96 raising money for American Cancer Society. So, so we're gonna Dead Last Start, and yeah.
So
It's
Ian
crazy.
has talked to us about it. I guess you guys are looking at raising 275,000. He gave me pounds, so I had to do a rough conversion. So I think it's about 275 US dollars, 275,000, maybe a
Yeah.
little bit more or less. We're going to include the link in episode notes. Are you guys fundraising as a group, or do you guys all have individual pages?
Yes. The answer to that question is yes.
Yes to both.
So the way that it works is there's a team goal.
Uh-huh.
And if you meet the team goal, no matter how it's met, everybody gets to run.
Okay.
So we each have our individual goals that we are all trying to meet. You know, people can donate to me personally, or they can donate to the group. So we're going to be doing some fundraisers like for the group and all of that. So if we don't meet the bigger group goal, then everybody's responsible for their individual goals.
Got it.
But if we raise, I forget what the number is, but if we raise a certain amount, we get to name a grant.
Oh my gosh, are you serious? That's incredible.
Yes. So I'm like, I hope we make it, because I would so like to be in. Could you imagine, like, if they're trying to like talk about some grant in some stuffy meeting and like, yes, we have the hash brown grant.
Is that what it's going to be? Have you guys decided?
No, I don't know what we would call it, but like, you know, since like hash browns are like our unofficial
but it has to be over the top silly, of course. That's the whole purpose of it. Oh, yes. I love that. So tell me what you're thinking about as you move back into the marathoning space after tackling Dopey, but this is a little different. So tell me what you're thinking about it.
Okay, so the other thing is that I did plan to sign up for Dopey 2026. So that was part of the reason why I was like, I'm already going to be training anyway, so I might as well just sign up for this thing too. So what I am thinking is, after doing the Extraordinary Strides, the challenge thing that we did, was that October or was that September?
Yeah, it was. I don't remember, but yes, I know what you're talking about. We have a monthly challenge, friends, with the Extraordinary League, and they're usually themed. And you're talking about the one where we did oh my gosh, like seriously.
It was like villains versus princesses.
And the first weekend, like you were top of the leaderboard because you did go to a BGR annual. And it's like you spent, I don't know, the entire weekend. I don't think she even slept, like 72 hours worth of activity. So it was just insane. It was so fun to see. But yes, I know what you're talking about.
Right.
So
after that and doing the coaching and the doing the speed workout and having that kind of a plan, I definitely plan on kind of using my plan from last time. So basically we're pretty much already in it, but incorporating some of that
a little bit of speed work
with the speed work and
for more shenanigans.
Yes, I totally noticed the difference, and I only did that for, you know, I guess it was 4 times. But I totally noticed the difference at I'm trying to remember what race it was.
Detroit Free Press.
Detroit Free Press. Yeah. I totally noticed the difference in doing the speed work and not doing the speed work, and just making you a faster person. It just does. And also, I could hear you in my head. You can do hard things.
Well, you can do hard things. Well, first of all, you can do fun things. That's for a fact. So I'm curious about, like, is this a philosophy that you have always had? Because what I hear you saying is that you say yes to adventure. Or is it something you've kind of developed through your running?
I think that I have become more adventurous through running. Like, interesting. Because I am definitely, the funny thing is I'm an introvert. I really am. Like, I am the type of person who, like, you know, like at a party, if I don't know people, I'm reserved until I get to know people and things like that. I've always liked to travel and things like that, but like doing things that are out of my comfort zone, that is totally because of running. Like, did I ever tell you about when we signed up for the Ragnar SoCal?
Tell me all about it. I love Ragnar. I think that's such a wonderful adventure. That's actually where I first learned about roadkill or kills. So tell me about SoCal.
So we did Ragnar SoCal Trail. Okay. So it was a BGR meetup. And so like, we're gonna We jumped in both feet. I was not a trail runner. That's number one. My other running partner, Taz, she is a trail runner. She's the type of person, she has all of her workout gear, 3 or 4 pairs of shoes, all in her car. And like she will pull over and run. Okay. So we signed up for this Ragnar so-called trail. And trail Ragnars are loops. And everybody on the team, there's 3 loops, and everybody green loop, a yellow loop, and a red loop. And everybody's supposed to do all the loops, and it's continuous, just like on the road and blah, blah, blah. I don't know why they called it the green loop.
Was it hard?
It was very hard. And
Were all 3 loops hard?
Yeah. I didn't, we had so much fun of adventure. That would be a whole nother episode just to go over the Ragnar.
We could totally do that. So come back so we could talk all about Ragnar, because for friends, if you guys have not heard of Ragnar, it's essentially a relay, and they have 2 different kinds. They have a road relay where you get multiple runners in 2 vans usually, and you kind of hopscotch each other. And then there's the trail where you camp. Or did you guys glamp?
We glamped. We definitely glamped.
Yeah.
And I took off and I was like, okay, here we go. I lasted maybe not even a quarter of a mile. The altitude killed me. Like, I could not run. I radioed back. I was like, y'all, because that's one thing. You got to listen to your body. Your body will tell you what you can and cannot do. You got to listen to your body. And I radioed back. I was like, y'all, it's going to be long. I'm walking this whole thing.
But you did it.
Yes. So
That's
had to walk. I had to walk the whole thing because
we're at sea level.
Yes. And I forgot. Like, I used to go to camp. I'm from Southern California, but I lived in Ontario, which is in a valley, not the valley, but in a valley. And whenever I would go up to summer camp, I would always have trouble breathing. I was asthmatic, and I always had trouble breathing when we got up to the high altitudes. I no longer, I grew out of my asthma, but I forgot that when you get up into higher altitudes, it is hard to breathe. It is harder to breathe than when you're at sea level. So I was like, oh yeah, I remember this from camp.
Yeah. And trail running is no easy feat on its own. So combining those 2 things. But you did it, and you lived to tell a tale.
We lived to tell a tale, and I didn't actually have to do the red loop because it's a very long story. My friend got stung by a bee, and we ended up picking up this kid to be on our team, and he wanted to run the red loop, and I was like, you can have my red loop. So he did, and he ended up running my red loop. So I had to run the yellow loop, but at night. Oh, I was so scared. I was scared out of my mind. So I'm like, taking it really slow. I got the lights and everything, and then letting people pass me, because that's what you do on trail runs. You move over and let people pass you. And I end up, there was a woman who was also on the trail. Her name was Barbara. I'll never forget her. She's an angel. And we ended up walking together and doing it together. And she kept telling me, she's like, Pearl, you probably should get one of these sticks. And I was like, no, I don't need it. I'm good. And she was like, no, you really should have one. And so finally she picked up a stick and she said, Pearl, I picked up this stick just for you. You got to take it. So I was like, okay. So that's when I learned, when you're on a trail, the walking sticks are really good.
The trekking sticks, they're amazing.
Yes.
Then it becomes more of a full body versus just relying on your legs and core.
Yeah. And then she also convinced me to turn off my headlamp and look up at the stars at one point. And it was phenomenally gorgeous to see the sky. That was worth it.
That had to have been worth it.
The truth is, I was a little scared. I'm kind of afraid of heights. And this thing was it was like walking next to cliffs at night. Why would you do this? Why do people do this? I don't know. But we did it, and it was beautiful. And they had, when we came out of it, the sun had risen. And we came out of it. Her team was coming out to look for her because we took so long.
Pearl, you're the person who does it. So why do people do it? Because it's part of the fun and the adventure. So with that, I want to hear, what advice would you give to somebody who maybe is having a little bit of a running slump, or has maybe been a bit afraid to tackle all of these new things? Because you talked about a lot of stuff: Dopey, Marathon, Dead Last Start, Ragnar's. I mean, all sorts of adventures that maybe people are a little afraid to do.
I say if it scares you, you should do it. If it scares you, you should do it. At least try it at least once. You don't ever have to do it again if you don't like it. So try it at least once. And then like make sure you try and train, like do a little bit of research or whatever. There's plenty of groups out there on Facebook and things
Tons of
where
resources
that to give you some advice so you're not going in blind. And you know, just to try it. Just trying it. I don't think I'll ever want to do another Ragnar trail, although because my bestie, one of my running besties, Taz, she did get stung by a bee and the bee stole the Ragnar from her. So she really wants to go out and do it again. So I think I have to do that one more time.
In SoCal specifically?
Yes. She wants to go back and conquer the mountain. And I'm like, we don't have to do this next year, do we? Because I really don't want to. I'll have to work my way back up to that.
You'll need an oxygen deprivation mask, even though those are slightly controversial in terms of training, but it's very hard to train for altitude here in Florida, except for our heat and humidity helps.
Yeah. So I think I might have to do that one. Maybe I can convince her that the Florida trail is good enough, but I'm not sure. I think she really wanted to conquer that mountain, and she got stung by a bee, and she's allergic, and it like stole the race from her.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
So I might have to do that one more time, which
I feel like it's kind of easy to convince you to maybe do it one more time, though.
Yeah,
I do.
I have to, because she would do it for me, so I would have to do it for her.
So with that, I feel like that's probably my favorite. I mean, we learned so much from you, but I love that. If it scares you, you should do it, specifically when it comes to running an adventure like this.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, don't, if it scares you to not drive with that, like your seatbelt, that's probably something you should still do. You should still wear your seatbelt. But when it comes to running, if it scares you a little bit, like if it causes a bit of trepidation, but you're still thinking about it, I think that's I 100% agree. I think that's a good note to definitely convince yourselves. And if not, all you need to do is contact Pearl, because she's going to convince you. I mean, there's no doubt about it. She's like a ray of sunshine who is always on these adventures. So I am super curious. You talked about all the things that you've done. What's next on your bucket list? Like something that does scare you a little bit.
The dead last start at the Chicago Marathon.
Does it?
I'm kind of afraid about that, but you know, I'll have 90 some other villains with me. So I think we'll be okay.
What scares you?
Just that it is a very long distance to start last.
Are you going to work? But you're going to work your way up because you're doing the half already.
Yes, definitely. And definitely I have incorporated more strength training, and I have the speed work behind me now.
Right,
too.
exactly.
So those things I think are going to prepare me. I feel like this second Dopey, like the marathon, will be because I will have like 2 marathons under my belt.
Yeah.
Plus all the training that I plan to do. So it'll definitely be I think a much better race as long as I, stick to my training and don't get injured. We should be good.
Okay. So with that said, my friends, we learned so much from Pearl, which is plan ahead, say yes to adventure. If it scares you a little bit, tackle it. We're going to wish you the very best for Chicago. And please do come back so we can hear about all these other running adventures. Thank you so much for sharing your joy of running, your joy for adventure, and your energy with us today. So friends, I can't thank Pearl and Ian enough. They really do bring so much joy and community to our sport of running. And I think that they are exactly what we all need to help us get over some of those holiday running slumps. Now, with that said, we are coming up on the end of the year super quickly, but I want to hear from you. What's your secret to beating the holiday running slumps and getting your workouts in? So head on over to the Facebook page and group, share your tips, your stories, your holiday running adventures, and don't forget, our 2025 Extraordinary League challenges are just around the corner. So keep an eye out for more details soon. If you've enjoyed this episode, Please leave a review, share it with a friend who might need a little extra sparkle in their own running journey. And until next time, I'm going to ask you, my friend, to keep shining, keep striding, and keep daring to be extraordinary.